Hello, everyone. We are back. Another episode in the Design Lounge, and this is the inspirational series. And what I'm so excited about this episode, particularly, is usually we talk about inspiration from the person I'm speaking with, what they're inspired by, what makes them go. We're gonna get a little bit of that as well, but I think a lot of you guys are gonna come away feeling inspired when you hear the story of my next guest, Brian Pinkett. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, excited. So, for those that don't know, they've been under a rock. They haven't heard of you and all that you guys do. Give the people a little backstory about who you are and what you do and who you work for.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's a long story, but
Yeah, yeah. We got time. We got time.
we got time. Okay, good. Well, I'll give you the important stuff first, right?
The
I'm
Cliff
a
Notes.
dad, got three kids, loving partner who is amazing. I'm a brother and have a nice big family, so I'm very blessed in that sense. I knew early on I wanted to be an architect, so I forged out on the East Coast and made myself to the West Coast and joined Landry Design Group over 30 years ago, actually. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's
when
pretty
I got
good.
there were six architects in the firm. I'm the principal of the firm now.
Yeah.
I've been principal for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. And we've got over 50 people working at the firm. We do work all around the
All
world,
over the world.
all over
Yeah.
the world. It's been fantastic. We're in 18 different countries, knocking on 19 and 20. Hopefully, knock on wood, this year it happens. Um, and for size, it's anything from 3 and 4,000 square feet. We're doing work in the Palisades right now, helping the people with their burnouts to rebuild to 200 and 250,000 square feet homes, all around the
Yeah,
world,
I've
man.
read I've read about some of those. I have a couple questions, but I want to start right there, right? So you've mentioned, I believe it was '94. You joined Landry in '94. You said you believe were the fifth or sixth architect on staff. I mean, you guys have won numerous awards, right? 8100
Mhm,
since like 2000. What I
mhm.
want to know is what keeps you motivated. What still pushes you that you've been doing this and being as successful as you have been for the last 30 plus years?
Man, it's interesting when you talk about motivation, inspiration, there's internal motivation, inspiration, there's external motivation, inspiration. So, for me, I love it all, right? I
Yeah,
love the projects where we have the potential to tell a story, right? Something that's
absolutely.
interesting. And it comes from the client, it comes from the landscape, it comes from the culture, even,
Yeah,
right? Because we're all over. So for me, it's important to like dive into that, right? And since we do everything from very modern to very traditional and classic styles, everything in between, the excitement is the challenge that we have, right?
yeah,
Where it is, who it is, and what it is that they're looking for. And there's nothing more satisfying than having a project completed and the client says, "Hey, this is so much more than I could have ever expected. How could you even dream this up? It was in my head the whole time, but I had no
yeah,
idea how to tell you." You know
yeah.
what I mean?
How'd you know? How'd you pull that out of me without me communicating it to you?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, you
Well,
know,
keep going.
yeah, man, I can keep going. For me, there's this tension, right, between permanence and transformation
Okay.
on our projects, and that
Yeah.
drives me, right? Like we're not going to outlive our projects. They're more than likely going to be here far past us. They're timeless, right?
Hmm.
And there's a dialogue that happens when you're trying to create these things with the materials that you're using, the light. I mean, different regions of the world have different lighting
Yeah.
that we have to deal with. So there's so many little things that can get you excited and inspired, not just the design. Obviously, traveling around the world and seeing buildings that other people have created is inspiring, but the places are inspiring, right? Where you are and the textures of the stucco or of the stone or even the shadows. Sometimes you'll see a shadow in a chateau and you'll be like, wow, look at that amazing shadow was created by a certain window. And that you bring that to the next project, and you always trying to look at ways to improve and develop. So that's what's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You
No, I was just when you're hearing it is, like I always say that people probably hate hearing. Like I love these conversations, right? Because for me, again, I get that front row seat. And but what's interesting is I've had enough of these where I start hearing some things. Some things are repeated as far as the travels and the inspiration, seeing things differently, and bringing that back. And it's fun for me to hear these stories and be like, okay, obviously the creation of end product is different on a lot of different levels and a lot of different ends. But when you start hearing like, okay, new designers, like you guys need to travel, you need to see the world, you need to explore because that where you hone in on your eye and what you can do. What I want to know from you is, has it always been architecture? Like when did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Man, I knew very early on that I wanted to be an architect. In fact, in ninth grade, my parents moved to a different school district so that I could take mechanical drawing and architectural drawing in the high school. There was a competition for high school seniors in this county
Okay.
that
Yeah.
they could design a home and compete against other high schools in the county, and the winning design would get built by other students at the vocational school. So in ninth grade, that was my journey, right? Get to 12th grade, design a house, hopefully get it designed and built. And I did it. I
Yeah.
got to 12th grade, designed the house, and I won the competition. The house was for a low income family, so it was very, sweet and dear to my heart,
Totally.
having been brought up in the lower income segment of the world. But yeah, it was exciting. So love it.
Yeah, yeah. I know you said, your designs, your Landry Design Group have soul. There's a soul
Mhm.
to the actual design itself. And what I want to know is, again, you came in 94, fifth architect. Now, how you said over 50 people, over, when I read it was 17 countries, you said 18 going on maybe 19 or 20 countries at the end of this year. I want to talk about the soul of Landry, right? Because
Mm.
how do you inject that into a business that is being able to scale and grow to the
Mhm.
size and have the products of the magnitude that you have, right? It can't just be just in the design. It has to be a foundation, a pillar within the business, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's the culture. And we spend a lot of time on our culture, on our people.
Yeah,
When we hire new prospective architects, we tell them that this is your business, this is your place of work. And the culture is important to us, but you're creating the culture, you know.
gotcha.
So you've got to be a part of it. You got to be a
Yeah,
participant, speak up, no bad ideas. We want to hear everything from everyone. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be a bad boss, asshole boss, right?
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
wouldn't want to have an asshole boss, right?
It sounds so
So
simple, right? It sounds so
it's
simple.
it's so simple, but it's just the way it is. So we try to keep our people as happy as we can. We spend a lot of time with mentoring and having
Yeah,
reviews twice a year. We have a program called CDP where every month we're talking with them about their future growth and development, where they want to take it, not necessarily where we want them to go, but what's important to
gotcha.
them, right?
Yeah.
And right now, since you asked, the newest thing we're talking about is what are the things that bring you energy and joy, right?
Okay.
People always talk about strengths and weaknesses, but we're talking about what excites you and fills your cup, right? So that
Yeah,
we can put you in those places. And you may not be the best at doing this particular thing, but if you're excited about it and it brings you energy, you'll do more of it and you'll get better at it because you're stoked, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, no, yeah. I mean, obviously, like I said, where energy goes, where they say success follows where energy goes. Talk about the mentorship part of it, because I know you guys are big on mentorship. And
Mhm.
again, what I want to ask, and I want to get the advice that you would give to a new business owner or a new entrepreneur. They might not have the bandwidth, they might not have the resources, they might not have the relationships yet, or
Mhm.
they don't think they have them to develop mentorship. How would you say, how does a new business implement mentorship into their business? Because obviously it's so important. I've seen, like I said, an integral part of what you guys do, and probably one of the reasons and backbones why you guys are as successful as you are.
Yeah, so mentorship is not very difficult. I mean, there's a
Okay.
little distinction between mentoring and coaching,
Yeah.
right? So in our definition, the two different things, one is, you're teaching someone experiences that you've already had, and the other is you're letting someone else come up with their own answers to their own problems, right? So when we have a mentorship program, yes, we're sharing our experiences, but we're asking them to come up with the solutions. So
Okay.
for a new or a younger firm, uh, I would say just start, right?
Okay.
Have a program, meet with your people, and explain to them what it is that you're about. You've got to have core values, you've got to have mission, you've got to have vision. Lean into that, right? Bring them in, share your story with them so they feel comfortable, and then ask them questions that's going to help them understand the field, understand what your firm is all about, and feel a part of it, right? If they're listened to, then they'll buy into whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? Because they've been able to express their ideas and their concerns, right?
Yeah, no, I mean they're a part of it, right? They aren't just at the end result, like they are taking part of it. They get that buy-in, like you said, and they want to be a part of it because they feel like they help build it. I want to talk about Asia Palace, right? 230,000 square feet, I believe, 30 acres. First off, how does a California-based firm, how do you guys even, how did that come about, and how do you even start working on a project like that when you're on the total opposite sides of the world? We are talking about, like I said, we are talking about a little something. We're talking about essentially a castle,
Yeah.
230,000 square feet. I'm trying to fathom what that even looks and feels like. How
Yeah.
did that happen?
Wow. So we get lots of big projects all around the world and they come
Okay.
into us in different ways, right?
Yeah.
I got a call a couple of weeks ago. A guy found us on ChatGPT,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
it's gone
Well, he just
from,
looked up. What did he wait, type in like best architectural firms in
yep,
the states or something like
in
that,
the
and you guys popped
world.
up?
They wrote the best architects in the world for residential design, and we popped up. And he called me. I'm
Well,
like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever heard,
hey,
right?
you're jumping ahead. I want to talk about AI in a little bit, but if
Okay.
ChatGPT says it's real, then it must be so,
It
right?
must be. But it just goes to the point, like back in the days where it was, magazine articles, and then it went to awards and they found you that way. And then, we always had a consistent like word of mouth connection from client to client, and that's still healthy for us. In this
Okay.
case, and we've had other projects where they're looking at other architects, and the other architects are pulling out our books. We've got, 5 books on our work,
Yeah.
and they're bringing different architects are bringing our books out, and they just said, you know what, let's just call the guys
Let's
that in the
go.
book. Yeah, so that's what happened here. They found us that way, asked if we'd be interested. At the time we had done so much international work. This is before COVID and everybody was working remotely. We had been working remotely for years
Okay.
before people were not at their office. We were working overseas. And
Yeah.
so for us, it was easy. We took a flight over, Richard and I, the founding partner. We
Yeah.
took a flight over. We met with them, landed the project, and it was just amazing. It really was. It was a really
Yeah.
great project.
Yeah. No, if people haven't seen it, we'll put it in here. We'll link it, share it, photo. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I was thinking like logistically, how does that even happen? Well, first off, you talked about it first. Like, how do you even come up with something of that magnitude and that size? But then logistically,
Yeah.
how does that even work? What project you'd say, and this might be a tough question for you to answer, would you say is the most rewarding and why? Because you guys have
Oh,
so many, like, again, amazing projects, but which one is the most rewarding?
you know what? There isn't one
Okay.
project that's most rewarding, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it may not be the answer that you're expecting, but it's really about the people, the clients, who the clients are, how they treat not just us, but the entire team, with the interior designer, the builder, the subs on the job, the engineers and consultants. That synergy between every player that creates the project is what makes it a great project. And that's where the soul comes from. You brought up earlier, but
Yeah.
our homes, I believe, have soul, and you can feel it when you walk in to the house. Once they've moved in, you go into the house and you can just feel it.
Yeah.
No matter where it is around the world, it's incredible. It really is.
You go in and you know this is a the Landry Design Group house. Like they put something into it. There's some extra oomph to it.
Right. Well, it's not just a Landry Design Group house, it's a collaboration.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
clients, their energies in it, the interior designer, because we work that you don't know where we stop and interior designer starts, and the interior designer stops and we start. So there's
Yeah.
all this very synergistic collaboration that happens in our projects, and we want to be involved with no egos, but because we're curious, right?
Yeah.
On whatever aspect that we're working on, whether it's the plumbing fixtures or the stone on the exterior or in the bathroom. It doesn't matter. We want to be involved with it.
Yeah. Love that. You've talked about wanting to see the industry. You want to see more creative architecture. What is creative architecture in your own words? Is it a part of that hybrid design model template that you guys have kind of perfected? Is that what you mean
Mhm.
by it? What is creative architecture?
Well, creative architecture, it comes from, for me, it comes from having a vision for what it is
Okay.
that you're about to create. Okay.
Yeah.
And just copying someone else's house or some other style, verbatim isn't very creative, right? You don't have
Yeah.
to like create a whole new architectural language to have a successful building, depending on the style of architecture it is. With modern projects, we do create our own language because then that informs us about how we're gonna execute, right? Or if we're
Yeah.
gonna do a very traditional project, we'll do a lot of research on that style, whether it's French or Spanish, Andalusian, and we'll incorporate the essence of that, but in a modern way, right? Because
Totally.
nobody wants
Yeah.
to live in dark rooms and small spaces with low ceilings, but that's challenging for us, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I actually had a client who wanted an Italian villa. And he said,
Okay.
I want a traditional Italian villa, not this California Tuscan that everybody talks about.
Okay.
And I said, okay, well, I spent time in Italy. I lived in Rome for a while. And I like, are you sure? And he said, yes. So I went and actually pulled pictures of real Italian villas where the steps are sagging, the shelves in the kitchen are leaning over. And I showed him all these pictures. And he's like, no, that's not exactly what I meant. And I was like, okay, so now let's figure out what it is that means for you because everyone has
Yeah.
definitions and that's why we ask a lot of questions, right? When we
Yeah.
when we do our programming meetings and throughout the process, we ask a ton of questions. We want to understand everything, how they live, not just the rooms that they have, but the important things. What's important to them, you know?
Yeah. Talking about the future and where things are headed and what you want to see. You mentioned, which is crazy, the fact that you got a project through ChatGPT. But you talked about AI, and you've said that people that have adapted, have a competitive advantage. I think you've also said some
Mhm.
to the tune of like there's gonna be companies that have AI and they use it, and there's gonna be companies that are no longer in business, right? And people don't want to hear it, but that's really the truth. How are you guys implementing it, and how do you see it impacting your guys' business?
So it's interesting because if you're not using it every day, you're getting behind, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So whether you're using ChatGPT or if you're using any of these other graphic programs, you have to be on it. So if anybody's out there and they're afraid of it, don't be afraid of it. Just dive in and use it. We use it there's two aspects of AI for our designers. One is the design and creative part. And a
okay,
lot of designers and architects say, well, that's never going to do as well as I can do it, right? And it's not intended to do that. What it's intended to do is to take your designs to a next level, right? So if you say,
okay,
listen, I'm the creator and I'm the one who's going to communicate with this AI source, you're creating this thing. They're not, the AI is not going to create it.
yeah.
So I would
You're
say
the
from
input.
you're putting all the exactly. It's the implementer that's going to make the difference. And I've said before, it's not going to put us out of business, but it's going to make your business grow exponentially because one person now has the bandwidth of 100 people if need be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the design aspect. You might have, I can get into details about what some examples are, but then there's actually the documentation side of it, right?
gotcha.
Where
Okay,
we got to design, but now we got to draw, and our sets are this thick. So there's a lot of pages and a lot of information within there. So we're in the process of trying to figure out how to get AI to do some of that remedial work, right? That
yeah.
has to be done, but in an efficient and accurate way. So that's what we're doing right now in our office.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it was. I read that. I was like, okay, yeah, these people. I've been saying it. We've had these conversations. They need to implement it. Landry Design Group. You've been there since '94, so 31 years. Congratulations to yourself on that. I
Thank
think it
you.
launched in '87, so we're talking about coming up on 40 years.
It's coming up.
What's next? What's the next 30 to 40 years of Landry? When I'm looking at Landry in 2000, and what is that? My math is correct.
Mhm.
60, 65. What am I seeing? What are you guys doing? How are you projecting? Because again, I talk about have these conversations,
Right.
and these heritage brand, these businesses have been around. They're looking at the next year. They're looking at the next
Mhm.
3 years, but some
Yeah.
are looking at the next 100 years, right? Like that's how they're planning. They're planning on being around for the next 100 years. So, and you talked about it earlier. Your guys' designs might outlive you. So, what is Landry in 30 years, 30 to 40 years
Yeah.
from now?
Yeah. So we've been talking about legacy for over 10 years now, and we're not even
Okay.
close to getting to that point. But
Yeah.
I always say, legacy isn't what you leave, it's what you live. Okay.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah.
creating the legacy now for the future. You know, the
Love
story
that.
that people will be writing or talking about us in the future, we're writing it now. So we're trying to be very informative and intentional about how we run our office, the projects we take, how we treat the people that we work with, so that it's easy to take the guy that's on the top or the team that's on the top down. It's hard to build up there with a great base to stay there, and that's
Gotcha.
important to us. So we have great relationships. And back to a question you asked earlier about how do you create a long lasting firm or a firm that grows. It is about relationships. You said that people don't have relationships. Everyone has relationships. You
Yeah.
could be your dry cleaner relationship might someday make it and call you and say, I want you to build my house. So it's how
Mm.
you treat people that you don't even know. You might come back and you might see them again in your future, right? I've been around here long enough to know, and I've seen people come back. I've got a client's come back 4 times,
Okay.
right? I want to use
Yeah.
you guys and it doesn't work out. I want to use you guys, it doesn't work out. And then finally landed it. It was the perfect timing for them, for us, and the project
Yeah.
was just the right one. So relationships are huge. It's a big component of what we
Yeah.
do, and how we continue the legacy of the firm. We have partners, Richard's the founding partner, I'm the principal. We have 4 other partners younger than us. We have
Okay.
associates. We have a lot of young, excited, energetic people that want to continue this brand.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's up to us to define what that brand is and what that means when we're no longer here, so it can continue to grow into the future.
Love that. And I'll be remiss without asking. Again, we said 18 countries,
Yeah.
maybe 19 and 20 this year. Can you give us a glimpse into some projects that you guys are working on? I'm sure they take a while that can be expecting in maybe the next 18 months, maybe exclusive 24 months, or anything you guys working on right now you want to talk about?
Well, there might be a book in the near future,
Okay. Okay.
Modern to
Yeah.
Classic 3. So keep
Okay.
your eyes and ears open for that. There's some projects we're doing in the Middle East that are exciting.
Yeah.
In Riyadh and Dubai. It's interesting to see how when you go global, what the possibilities are, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the thing. You don't get pigeonholed into the neighborhood of what they're doing down the street or what they're doing around the corner.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity to bring our expertise all around the world, and from really big projects to really small projects, right? So we
Yeah.
love doing small projects because we can take what we've learned from the
To all
larger
these other
ones.
things. Absolutely.
Yeah, or if we're in a big project and we have a tight space, we can go back and forth. And then the same thing is said with the style of architecture. We learn so much from one style that we can bring into another, and it's just so rewarding. I mean, we did a project in Malibu that was based on the art of Richard Serra, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
and it just looks like a beautiful sculpture, and
Well,
everyone who drives by just has nothing but compliments to say about it, and you just feel so comfortable. The client was an art collector, so just laced with amazing art and sculpture inside.
yeah.
It was a really nice project. So yeah, again, we do modern, classic, hybrid, and anything in between, and we enjoy the challenge and the excitement of seeing the projects through to completion.
Well, I love it. I'm glad we were able to connect. I'll be excited when the next book comes out. I'm gonna have to have you like sign it or something, get a little exclusive version, and I'll just be watching the project because, like I said, I got the brief, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we can talk about so much. There's so many things to
Yeah,
talk about,
that's
but
right.
yeah, just love to hear everything you guys are doing, and yeah, I'm excited about what's next.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a great time talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking out the time.
All right, take care.
All right, bye bye.